This meeting will come to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to this morning's regular July meeting of the Vestavia Hills Board of Education. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda, which is displayed on the screen. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next order of business is to approve the minutes of the June 28th meeting that have been distributed. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion or corrections to the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll now turn the meeting over to Dr. Phillips to introduce the delegation.
Okay, we do not have any delegations to my knowledge, right, Pat? Oh, we did? We did? Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you had responded. I know you've been trying to make it to us, so I'm sorry about that. Do you want to stand up here at the lectern? Be where you're comfortable, though.
I just need to get all here.
And if you would, show your name, grade, and school.
My name is Shayna Lindsay. I'm a 7th grader and I go to Liberty Park Middle School. Thank you all for seeing me today. I'd like to discuss something that, if changed, could improve upon the school system and make everyone a bit happier with an overall better learning experience. I've talked to many students and they have said that the dress code has flaws and could be better if changed. These rules are oppressive and outdated. So I am here to show my points and maybe change the dress code for the better. I've given you a paper to show the Pizzitz dress code, and if the dress code is different from school to school, that is wrong, and it would be better if there was one decided on dress code for every school in the Vestavia Hills school system. Due to time constraints, I'm only going to be focusing on a few rules. Rule 2. With the hats and sunglasses, who is that hurting when we can wear just a baseball cap in the halls? Why can't we? 3. With strapless garments, spaghetti straps, backless, none of this is outside of the law, and I do not believe any of it would be distracting. What is my shirt covering that if the straps were slightly thinner, what would that change? 4. Too tight and too revealing is simply a matter of opinion. Some believe that skinny jeans are way too tight and others believe that it's perfectly acceptable. Also, in either case, it's covering everything that would need to be. Rule 6. Some people's arms are longer than others. Also, why is, if our lower legs are fine, why is our upper legs considered inappropriate? It's all just our legs. Also, what are spandex and leggings exposing that jeans aren't? Rule 8. Today, so many people get their hair dyed that no one bats an eye at it. It's so common that no one's distracted. If you look to section 2, the last sentence says that if a student fails to adhere to the regulations in the following list, he/she is in violation of the dress code. Violation of the dress code is a Class 1 offense as defined in the Vestavia Hills Student Code of Conduct. Other Class 1 offenses include minor intimidation or harassment of a student. So if I were to wear a hat, it'd be the same as someone bullying another student. Excessive tardiness. If I was to wear a spaghetti strap, it would be the same as me always showing up to class late. Inappropriate public displays of affection. If I were to wear sunglasses, it'd be the same as 2 students just kissing in the hallway. Unauthorized absence from class. So if I were to wear running shorts to school, it'd be just as bad as me ditching class. Continuing refusal to complete class assignments. So if I were to wear a skirt more than 3 inches above my knee, it'd be the same as me never doing any work at school. Littering or defacing school property. So if I were to wear anything backless, it'd be the same as someone spray painting the walls in the bathroom. Also, if I may bring up the punishments, detention is one of the main ones. So, someone who dyed their hair pink might be next to someone in detention with someone who bullied another student and defaced school property. In the end, if you would, please look through the dress code and ask, why was this put into play? Who's it benefiting? Who might it be hurting? What are we teaching kids? What are we so afraid of? I'd like to thank you all for seeing me today.
Excellent. Thank you, Shayna. I know the courage it took to stand up in front of everyone and address the board. As adults, we have much to learn from what you just did this morning. You spoke volumes, not only on the topic of dress code, which is something that helps us keep things in perspective when the envelope is pushed on things like that. It may change, it may not, but the manner in which you handled that was incredible. And you are an example of why we go about the work that we do. For a student to stand up in front of a group of adults, in front of a TV camera, and be able to speak as you did, that is what we are truly here for. And I'm so proud of you. Thank you for sharing that with us. And your perspective and your comments and your questions will not fall on deaf ears. I can assure you of that. Now, whether or not we have to agree to disagree on some things is another story, whatever the outcome is, but good for you. And Mom, to sit there and watch her do that, my gosh, I know you're proud, but at the same time, I could feel your nerves for her, but you did an excellent job. And when you give a speech like that, always breathe. Just always breathe. That's what you have to do. Just breathe. Good for you. Thank you for being here. All right, administrative reports. We have asked Pam Smith with Balch Mangum to be here today to talk a little bit about the trademarking, merchandising, and licensing, a bit about where we started, how we are where we are today, just a very brief overview, as there naturally has been a lot of chatter on Facebook, and hopefully she can demystify some of what we're doing. I would expect that you will also generate some more questions, as we are just getting to the beginning of this process, this portion of the process of protecting the brand that we now have. And so, Pam, thank you for being here, and I'll let you come up here, please, and share your thoughts with us this morning.
Hi, thanks for asking me to be here today. My name is Pam Smith, and I'm a trademark attorney at Balch & Bingham. And some of you may remember that a few years ago, I worked with the board here to work on protecting the branding that exists for the Vestavia Hills school system. And we went through a process of protecting those marks at the Alabama Trademark Office. And at the same time, we started talking about how we were going to license those marks and make sure that they were protected, because part of being a trademark owner is not only protecting your brand by going out and getting formal protection for it, but it's also protecting your brand by being sure that you're enforcing the mark and enforcing how it's used, controlling the products on which the mark is used. You know, there may be some products that would be inappropriate for use of the logos and the school names, and also just kind of enforcing and making sure in the marketplace that everyone's kind of playing on an even playing field in terms of the licensing. Everybody pays, or everybody participates according to a licensing contract, and then we go about the process of enforcing that. And so we started that process. That process was administrative in nature, so there was a lot of administration that had to go on. There was a lot of monitoring that had to go on to see just what was being used out in the marketplace. And then we had to go about determining how we were going to enforce that and make sure. And during that process, we learned a lot about how things are licensed. For the most part, I hope I'm not oversimplifying this, but it was easier in the community to be able to license those and have those one-on-one relationships. When you get into large retailers who may sell things that are branded with the marks, it's a lot more difficult to get in touch with the enforcement mechanisms for those. entities, as well as the purchasing for those entities, to be sure that they are properly licensed to do that. And so about a year or so ago, and I may be wrong on the timing of this, y'all may have to correct me, but you undertook a rebranding process and went back and looked at your brands and hired a marketing company to put together some great new trademarks. And out of that process, I think it became clear that we wanted to take a more cohesive approach to trying to manage the new branding and the production for that new branding, the licensing of that new branding, as well as the former branding that's still in use, as well as kind of managing the enforcement of it. And you know, I think that after consideration by you guys, that there was kind of this idea that perhaps there would be a vendor that would be available to kind of help the board manage that process and really take away some of the administrative burden and some of the time burden that was involved in that, because obviously your number one priority is instructional time and cultural and educational. And so we wanted to open that up to see if there were people that would be interested in kind of managing the licensing, the enforcement, and the and kind of the maintenance of the branding of the product. And so at the end of June, you issued an invitation to bid for people to bid to be a part of that process. And I don't want anybody to be upset with me today, but as you may or may not be aware, the bidding for that and the bids for that are due today at 4 p.m. And so I cannot answer, as part of this process today, questions about the bid itself. There was a process set forth in the bid itself to ask questions about the bid and to receive written responses to those questions. So in order to kind of maintain the integrity of the bid process, I can't answer questions about the bid itself. However, I can answer questions about how we got to this point, what the purpose of the bid is, and really how we got to the bidding process. I will say one thing that I want to make clear, because of just I don't know all the comments that have been made, but the board maintains the ability to kind of control this process. So, you know, there are bids that have been, we've issued this invitation to bid. There will hopefully be bids presented. You will go through the process of selecting perhaps a vendor, but at all times you're going to have control over the licensing process, and there will be a contract in place for that. And so it's not a situation where you are turning over the ownership of these marks, or you're turning over responsibility for the marks themselves to a vendor. It really is an opportunity for you to delegate some of the administrative burden that's involved in this to somebody who will be perhaps more equipped and more experienced to address the licensing and enforcement part of this. So that's really why we went this route.
Thank you, Pam. Any questions from you all for Pam at all at this point?
Like, is this how are other communities handling this type of thing? Like, if I was a Hoover resident, wanted to run 1,000 Hoover Buccaneers Stadium cushions, do I have to license that with them, or how does that work?
Well, I don't know for Hoover specifically, but yes, for a trademark owner to maintain control over its marks. So in other words, for you to be sure that the mark is just not available for anybody to use in any circumstance, then a license would be the proper way to use those marks.
And then is it up to us to determine what those, I mean, is there room or latitude for us to have different applications of the license? For example, like if it was a small business owner that wanted to run the stadium cushions versus Dick's Sporting Goods, could we have one type of licensing for the small business owner and a different for somebody like Dick's?
Yes.
Okay. So there's still wide latitude at how we apply the licensing fee. Is it a fundraiser? Is it, general use purposes, or is it purely profiteering kind of stuff, right?
Sure. I mean, that's a good way. That was really what I was trying to express. So that's a good way to kind of illustrate what that is. The board maintains wide latitude, and in fact, the bid specifies that, the other licenses stay in place. That there's not, this isn't some kind of clawback of necessarily the licenses. That would be something that would continue according to the terms that are in place. And when they come up for renewal, that would be a board decision as to whether to renew.
So somebody who's currently licensing our products, there would be no change until such time that both parties.
There's no legal ability here to claw back those licenses. This bid is not intended to claw back those licenses.
It's intended to protect it, actually.
Yes.
So Pam, we've in the past have not had a routine historical enforcement or auditing mechanism. Is that true?
I think that's right. I think we've dealt with things on a case-by-case basis, and typically it's been somebody's walked through a store and saw something and then brought it to y'all's attention and said, look, I was in the store, I saw this, I don't know if they're licensed. We've investigated whether they're licensed, and then we've issued a cease and desist if that was what you decided to do as far as enforcement.
And it might have been you or Will Hill, Tackersley,
Right.
your partner, where one of you talked about just Googling and sort of random Vestavia Hills stuff came up on the internet that we had no control over, and certainly weren't receiving any income from it.
Correct. Yeah, and that's the Google alert process. A lot of people use that to monitor. They just set a Google alert to kind of follow what comes up under their name or under their marks.
The example that I've used before, several years ago, one of the large drugstore chains, pharmacies, had some apparel in their store, and so and at the time I was responsible for the enforcement of that, just in the role as assistant superintendent. I was asked to call, and when I did, what we discovered, and that's when we really got involved with Pam trying to help us come up with a better way of managing and policing this, was the manager didn't know that they shouldn't be, and then when we found out when we really started digging for what was going on, the person that was protecting the brand at the time, the company that was, which has changed hands several times, actually had the number 26, I'll never forget it, 26 manufacturers and distributors throughout that were not reportable because they were buried layers deep in their processes, and they were distributing the brand and the merchandise, whatever that was, which was quite alarming that there were this many people that they weren't reporting, and we were receiving zero monies in royalties back to the programs at the high school or the middle schools, wherever. And that was an example that really brought it to our attention at the time.
Right, as I recall, that licensor, the person that was doing that, they were working at the manufacturer level, so it was nearly impossible to trace where that was being distributed. And so you can imagine that makes it difficult when you walk into a big box store or a sporting goods store and you see that there are things that are marked with your marks, but you know you didn't authorize that, and so you're trying to figure out how were they authorized, and you call them, and once you get through all the layers of people to get to the person that can answer your question, they believe they are authorized, and like you said, those reports were not telling who was actually authorized to use it.
So Pam, when we sign a licensing contract with a vendor, typically what's the term of that contract? Is it?
As I recall, they're annual. I think they automatically renew, but you have a termination ability there.
As do they.
As do they, yes. Correct, thanks.
Pam, do we know, some of the questions that have been brought up to me, the actual logos themselves, do we have trademarked logos?
We are still
Yes.
working on the trademarking.
Of
Have
the
they
new
all been
logos.
finalized?
We prepared applications for all of them. We haven't received the registrations back on all of them for the rebranding. The original VH, the interlocking VH, the Rebels, those are all already trademarked.
Okay.
So those have been, but the new, what you call the institutional logo, the one Rebel, those are in the process.
Okay. I
That
know-
takes quite some time, but
Yeah.
they've handled that on our behalf as well,
in the
applied for that.
for the new ones.
For the new ones,
Correct.
yes.
'Cause
yes.
I know that's a question that people have out there. And another one is, and I spoke at length with Greg one morning, appreciate it, over the document. And a concern that people have is if it goes with one entity, the actual control that entity has. Do the local shop owners have to go to Company X if they have the contract and purchase the shirts, the hats, the stadium cushions and things like that through that company before they can do any?
I think that would be a board decision. There's certainly the latitude within the document for the licensing to go as it has in the past and continue on if that's what the board wants to do. And in doing that, the only thing that might change would be that vendor would be the one to actually administer those contracts. You would still see all those contracts, but they would just be the ones to keep up with when they renew and just the administrative part of that.
So we're looking at this in a nutshell more as an administrative
That is correct.
issue,
That is correct.
accountability type issue.
That's correct. And making sure that monies that need to come back to these programs comes back, and indeed does come back to the programs.
And an ease of use for other things. I would think, just kind of the way that I've thought about it would be, if you're a local vendor and want to put Rebels on a Yeti cup, right? You would license Rebels and you could go put it on the Yeti cups all you wanted. If you were a teacher and you had some program and you wanted golf shirts for all the kids or something like that, this group would be a place that could receive the money, fulfill the order, all that kind of stuff, without that teacher having to find that type of avenue themselves.
I think that's certainly a possibility, yes, that you're going to work through, if there's a vendor selected, you're going to work through with that vendor what the merchandise plan is going to be and what those merchandise items are. And certainly if golf shirts or whatever were the merchandise item, that would be an avenue for them to go to.
School clubs and things like that, again, I know that's...
Well, we had conversation about that. Clubs, fundraisers, things of that sort still are up to the local, it would be up to us to determine whether that was something, a piece of this that we wanted to enter into or not.
Okay.
What makes sense? It might be a t-shirt for something, and then it may be another fundraising effort that a relationship has already been established. Let's say at one of our elementary schools, there's already a relationship with a vendor that we want to value. There's some flexibility in determining that piece of it, and that gets to be on us administratively as far as how that plays out.
All right.
Which is important.
When Coach Seegers was here at the first presentation,
Yes.
one of the things he said that each coach kind of negotiates their own
Yes.
deal.
Yes.
So there's obviously some inefficiencies there that, could make it a little easier on all of them too.
Absolutely. Any others?
I just have one question. Just to clarify what you just mentioned.
We'll have public comment at the end of the meeting. Thank you. But I won't forget that you had one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you for
Y'all-
being here.
okay.
That's good.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. We have a brief update on Vision School. As you all know, we've been talking for several months about expanding our services to our students in the area of alternative school, particularly the non-punitive side. And so we have a team, Candace Van Wonderham, Casey Pierce, and Jennifer Bailey, who are going to share with you this is just for informational purposes, so that you'll be aware of this. This is an important program to us.
Before Ms. Pierce talks about the Vision School and how we'll be implementing that there, I just wanted to quickly review the virtual school program that our district is offering. It's state mandated. The State Department required school systems to have by the beginning of the 2016-2017 year an online program or a virtual program for students if they were eligible. And so we had a committee of teachers and counselors and administrators who came together and they worked on that policy. It was board approved. You'll go to that next slide. I want to make sure I cover everything. It was board approved, and so everything was good for 2016 and 2017. And so the team then began working on policies and procedures. The policies in that regard had to do with student eligibility, how students were eligible, their participation, what requirements that they had to meet in order to continue to participate. To participate. And then we also had to decide how we would deliver instruction. And so really we had three options. We could use Access, which is free through the state. All the teachers are certified. It's a proven program that's been in use since 2006. And we could also deliver the services ourselves, or we could purchase from a vendor. Because we're very early in the process, because we know the value of the teachers in our schools, and because we know Access had been proven and had been successful, we decided to use that in the beginning, and because it was free and has been something that the state has proven to be something that's good for students. So that committee met, they came together back in the fall even, and started deciding, on what their procedures would be. Of course, there are a testing site has to be determined, and that's where Ms. Pierce is going to come talk about that. How we will test, what will attendance requirements be, will students have to come on campus, what's best for all students involved. So they determined those things, and we developed forms and applications and a process for students to apply for any kind of virtual option that they wanted to pursue. And we're now going to offer the testing site as the Vision School. And so I'll turn that over to Ms. Pierce and let her talk about that.
I think most everybody is familiar with our traditional alternative school. It has been successful for our system for quite some time, and so we are just simply adding a couple of layers to the existing alternative school. Everything will still be housed in that house by the tennis courts. It is the Vision School. We are adding the virtual school, so we will be open Tuesdays and Thursdays for students who have been accepted into virtual school, who qualify. They would come in and take their test there under the supervision of the teachers at the Vision School. And we are also adding a component, a non-punitive side to the Vision School. We do have students in our school system who struggle in a typical classroom for all kinds of reasons. And so this is a need that our school system has had for quite some time. So we will be adding that component, a non-punitive side to our Vision School, and students go through a process to be accepted into that program also. It's a referral process. The problem-solving team at each school gets together, and they submit a name, and we go through a process for acceptance. And so that will also be housed at the Vision School. So a lot of great things happening at what has been our alternative school and now is the Vision School with some new components added.
Any questions from you all about what they're doing or comments?
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you all so very much. Thank you. All right. Our next update, I've asked Dr. Tyler Burgess to come up and speak with you. We were going through AP information one day. I, of course, meet regularly just to kind of get some updates and answer questions and do some problem solving. And he was sharing with me the work that has been done at the high school on behalf of AP. And I told him that's something I felt like he needed to present to you all because there's such good things happening there. And then as well as we've, when I say we, they, with our support, have modified the foreign exchange student procedures to kind of shore those up because we've been unable for quite some time to accept foreign exchange students. We would like to do that. It is up to us. But I've asked him just to do a brief presentation to you all on that.
Good morning. Good to see you all. I wanted to say, Shana, right? Is it? Great job on your presentation. One of the things I noted that I wrote down was that we probably could have more consistency among all of our schools, and that's a conversation that we can have among our principals, but I think that's certainly reasonable and something we can do. So good job. I'm proud of you. Thank you. I want to talk, can I start with foreign exchange? Great. I want to start with this and end with the hoorays. Foreign exchange program procedure, I've shared a draft with you all. I'm going to go over just a few brief things for the audience as well. One of the reasons why we're addressing this now, just to let you know, like, hey, why is this coming up right here at the start of the school year? One, we have been approached by some accredited organizations, which we've written out in this procedure for hosting and placing a foreign exchange student in our school. But also, over the last several years, we have seen more students of our own become foreign exchange students in other countries. We had a student recently returning from a trip to Germany over the last year. He was a student in Germany. He's been before the board in the past. And we have a student this year going to France to be a foreign exchange student for the year. And so it only stands to reason that we should look at accepting these students in our schools if we are sending ours to other schools as well. And between that, there's a lot of learning and excitement that can take place for our students. So just to outline a few points, one of the things we wanted to make sure of in this process is that we are fully above board and using schools programs that are accredited. We are looking at programs that are accredited through FLEX, which is the Future Leaders Exchange Program, and yes, the Kennedy Lugar Youth Exchange and Study Program. Currently, we're planning to work with a company called AYUSA. They've been in business since 1981. Their primary goal, they are a nonprofit, and their primary goal is the expanding of global learning for U.S. students and students abroad. And they actually have a local chapter here in Birmingham, which I've found to be a very good thing. So they've been easy to reach out to. They've been easy to get in touch with when we have questions about their programs. So what we would like to do is create a system to where we vet the program that we are using, that they do fall under these state-approved accredited programs. And then at that point, we can start to look at the student who is coming in. They need to be residents of Vestavia Hills, or the host family needs to be a resident of Vestavia Hills. And once we can establish that that's in place, then at the local school, they can come to enroll. So there's a formal application process through their program. We have to review all of that. But then once they come in our doors and they are with a host family who resides in Vestavia, then it really becomes like any other student who enrolls in our school system. And they would go through our enrollment process. We would place them with classes. They would register online. And it would be a pretty typical situation. On the back end, there have been some questions that we've had just about logistics on the back end of that. When they leave us, do they take credits with them? Do they have a transcript? And the answer is yes. They actually have to go back to their host school in their own country. So we would send them with a transcript of the work that they did at Vestavia Hills with their credits at that point, and they would count as a withdrawal student from Vestavia Hills for us. That's kind of the basics of it. I could get into details if you would like. But if you have any questions, I've formed a good relationship with the AYUSA folks this summer, so I feel like we can call them and they can come sit down with us if we have any more questions from you all about this. But we're excited to get started. I think it's a good time, and it's a good time for our students. One thing I will mention, Mr. Boone, I just remembered you'd asked about this. We are going to limit it to 4 students at the high school for now, just because of enrollment numbers. We are seeing, as you all know, a large increase in enrollment. And we think that 4 is a reasonable number for us to get our feet wet. Obviously, right now we just have 1 student who is planning to enroll this fall. And so hopefully that will go well, and it'll be a smooth process for all involved. Do you have any questions?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Is the AYUSA, are they kind of supervising this process for us?
They are on the front end, so they were very active in the approaching us and having the student placed here. They actually hand selected the family that this student's going to be placed with, just to make sure that it's a good, seamless program. They actually vet their students pretty well. They have a large pool, and they only accept a few who would be good fits that they feel they would have positive impact in the communities that they're going to be working in. So yes, they are along with that. So the rep, I spoke with her this weekend, she actually said that at any point if there's a problem, question, or concern, that they will come to the school, sit down with the host family, with administration and the student, teachers, whomever, to help iron out any problems or issues. So they're very hands-on.
Will they be the ones that'll be reviewing and interviewing and selecting the host family?
Yes.
And they have guidelines they follow in a process?
Yes, and the families they apply for that through their program. So, yes, ma'am.
Is there any other local school systems participate?
Yes, Hoover City Schools has been accepting foreign exchange for several years. Actually, we looked at their processes and procedures, and as we were determining what ours might need to look like. Homewood has in the past. They don't currently because they are also busting at the seams, probably more so than we are. So I don't think that they are this year, but I know they have in the past. I believe Mountain Brook has in the past. I'm not sure if they are currently, but I do know Hoover is currently. I've spoken with them recently.
So Tyler, you would kind of be the gatekeeper right now.
Correct.
Because we have very active families in Vestavia, as you know, so they would need to reach out to the high school.
They would need to reach out to their accredited program, whether it be AYUSA or a Flex or YES, and then the program would reach out to us to place a student.
Okay.
So it actually lists in here that we would not take walk-ins off the street from families. They actually need to go through the program, and then the program can orchestrate the process with us.
All right, thank you.
And we'll be assisting with the administrative oversight of that from the district level as well, in partnership with the high school.
And timing is everything, as I understand. I mean, this is something that takes a long time for students to get in a program and get placed. So obviously, this is something that typically would start in the spring of a year, but we're a little late to the game this year, but it's working out.
Is there a cost to us?
There's no cost to us. No, sir. It's as if any student moved into our district. So we benefit from the family that lives here.
Okay.
I want to brag a little bit on our high school students. We received our AP stats, AP statistics for this year. AP is Advanced Placement College Board, for those of you who aren't familiar with AP. And we have a large program at the high school. And so I wanted to outline just a few highlights from our students from this past year, because I really feel like they just knocked it out of the park. And so I wanted to take a minute to brag, so thank you for the opportunity. We had 401 students participating in AP this year at the high school, which is a record number for us. They took 1,007 exams of the 401 students, which is also a record number of exams for us. This is up about 60 exams from last year, which it's just phenomenal. I'm not going to point out all of these. I've given you a list of the details, but it's for the audience's sake, so you can hear some great numbers. We had 84% of our students who are in AP this year score a 3 or higher on their AP exams, which is a phenomenal number. It's up 6% from last year. So again, we're growing. Our number isn't growing in participation, our number is growing in enrollment, but yet our success in the program is also improving, which is awesome. What you typically would see is as your program grows, your averages get a little bit smaller just because of size. But we're actually seeing our students improving and doing better than they did in the previous year, which is what we want to see. That means growth and positive growth. A couple other things to highlight. We had 3 first-time courses this year, 3 AP classes that were taught for the first time: comparative government and politics. 29 of our 31 students scored a 3 or higher. They had an average of 3.97. Scoring in AP is 1 to 5, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst score you can receive. I guess you could score a 0 if you just put your name on it, but
But 3 articulates to college credit.
correct. So a 3 is what's considered as passing. 3, 4, or 5 articulates into credit at your higher institutions. Most accept a 3, some only accept 4s and 5s depending on where you're going to school. So this all translates into college scholarship dollars at the end of the day. So, again, a credit to our students and their families. So comparative government and politics, that was awesome. 29 of 31 students, 3 or higher. That's wonderful. Computer science principles was a first-time course. 10 of our 12 students scored a 4 or higher, and all 12 students scored above a 3. They had an average of 4.25 on that test, which is great. And our environmental science program is a first-time course as well. 11 out of 13 students scored a 3 or higher with an average of 3.62. So again, all of our students in those 3 brand new courses being taught scored tremendously well and will receive college credit for the courses that they take. A couple other things to note, I just highlighted a couple of these. Our Calculus 8, our math team is just awesome, right? So they're great. Our Calculus AB students scored a 4.83 average in the class, 15 5s. That's amazing. English language, which is 11th grade course. English literature is 12th grade. Language is 11th grade. They scored a 4.3 average as a class, 27 with a 4 or higher. 27 students scored a 4 or higher on that exam, which is tremendous. And then United States history, which is actually, we split it out over to 2 years. They take it in 10th grade and 11th grade, but the test is taken at the end of the 11th grade year. And we had 52 of 56 students scored a 4 or higher on that test, an average of 4.39 for that course. We had students taking 30 different AP tests this year, which is also a record number for us. We have some that take some that we don't teach actually, like Chinese language and things like that. they do very well, as you would imagine. But we had 26 of our 30 courses had above a 3 average on the test. And then lastly, just individually for our students, we had 14 students who were National AP Scholars this year, and that means that they have scored a 4 or higher on 8 or more exams over the course of their high school career. So 129 AP Scholars, which is 3 or higher over the course of their years. So again, tremendous report. I'm glad to share it with you, and congrats to our students and teachers. So thank you. Go Rebels.
The only thing I would
Sorry, you have questions?
well, I'm going to add to it. It does not need to be taken for granted the fact that the teachers who teach these courses are incredible educators and instructors as well. They are teaching students who clearly are brilliant, and to stay ahead of them in providing lessons and courses and coursework that is challenging to them is in and of itself a great feat. The other part of this is just the administration of those courses, and again, the administrators at the high school who not only start with scheduling and placement of teachers as far as who's teaching them, to just the administration of this many exams is an incredible work of art, I would call it. So they are to be commended for their work as well. Absolutely. So thank you all.
Thank you. Great work.
All right, and then lastly with updates for this portion would be the facilities update. Thank you for being here, Brennan, Greg.
Good morning.
Good morning.
A lot going on in construction and facilities the past month. Summer usually is a busy time for construction and facilities. The first project we'll talk about is one that's technically been completed, the majority of the project, and that's Cahaba Heights and the gym project. Part of that project was re-roofing of the kitchen roof that we talked about last month. That's the only thing remaining of that project. The membrane of that roof is now complete. The only thing they lack is the metal, so coping and gutters. So we expect that to be complete this week, and then that'll totally close out that project. We've talked about this project in the past, but that's all that's remaining to close out that first phase of the work at Cahaba Heights. I've seen pictures in past, had a grand opening at this building. The second phase at Cahaba Heights, which is a classroom addition and media center addition with some offices, art room, has begun. They have started grading. They've done all the demolition. There were two kind of critical components for this summer, and that was relocation of the fiber service and the power that feeds the building. The fiber is now complete. The last phase of the power we expect to be complete this week. So those were two big, huge shutdowns to the school's fiber and power services that we knew had to be done over the summer before school started. So looking like that's going to occur. You can see some pictures of the old gym that's now down on the rear of the school. Grading is underway. You can see pictures of the primary power service going to the building. So building pads are starting to shape and take form for that site. At East, this is the new kitchen cafeteria. This project is progressing. This project is kind of tracking a few weeks behind schedule right now. The rain is really hurting this project as of recent, these large rainstorms. So getting dried in is kind of hurting this project right now, but we expect here in the next month they'll be completely dried in. Curtain wall and storefront is the last thing that remains to get completely dried in. It should occur over the next couple weeks, and then it's moved to interior finishes where we think they can make up some of that lost time. So some pictures of the school itself. You can see the exterior facades complete. The roofs are now on. You can see kind of the framing for the curtain wall ongoing, so the next step will be putting glass in. You can see at the bottom right the kitchen cooler has been set. They've started quarry tiling inside of the kitchen, the areas where they can do the finishes. So moving on to the cafeteria portion, they'll start finishes in the large section of the cafeteria here in the next month. At West, adjacent to us, the project this summer was the multi-needs renovation. We knew this would be a tight timeline project that had to be done over the summer, so this entire project has started and will finish this summer. The final inspection for that project is scheduled for tomorrow. So assuming all goes well in the final inspection, tomorrow they'll start moving into these areas on Wednesday in time for school to open. These pictures were taken last week. They've been even more updated since then. This is one that they've worked most every weekend to get complete. You can see the interior finishes of this space, millwork, restrooms, classrooms, and the canopy that's being constructed to connect west to this Board of Education office to utilize some classrooms in the space for next year. So on track there. The next phase at west is the kitchen cafeteria there. This project has been been awarded, a contract execution is in process. We expect to get that back here in the next week or two. Then that project will officially begin. They're going to start setting up erosion control and fencing in their job trailer, and then hopefully here in the next couple weeks that project will be started. The last thing to discuss is the Berry campus. We are still progressing with design and programming there. Had a few meetings there this past month with administrators, teachers to get input on the design, hear their needs, hear their wants and desires to kind of implement that into the program. About to get started with surveying of the site, geotechnical exploration, so moving forward with that project. That's it for construction facilities update.
Brennan, how will the delays by rain at East impact the start of school over there?
Well, that kitchen cafeteria was scheduled for it's either September 20th, 21st end date. That's the new kitchen cafeteria. So the only thing kind of there shouldn't really impact the existing kitchen cafeteria. As soon as that kitchen cafeteria is done, they'll transition into that new space. So you have a space that you can use until that one is finished. But we're going to try and make that contractual end date by all means.
Is there a penalty clause in place on any of these projects?
There is. So if there is late, I mean, the board has an option to implement liquidated damages. You usually have to have a just cause to do that if you choose to move forward with that, and usually you have to have a reason that you've been damaged by the delay to kind of enforce that, but there is penalty clauses within the contract.
And that's standard.
That is.
That we have that in there.
Okay.
Brennan, we're requiring the contractors to monitor and record and submit delays for rain, etc. If there's a contractual mechanism that allows them a specific amount of time on a monthly basis. If it exceeds that, then they're eligible for a delay. If it doesn't, then they're not.
East, for example, with the rain delays and things, are they working weekends, longer days to make up the time? Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Brennan. Okay. Financial statement. Mr. Mayor?
The financial information in your packet is for the month of June. Right now, local revenue, specifically ad valorem sales tax, those local sources, is at 100.5% of budget. So we have exceeded through June what we had budgeted actually for local revenues to be coming in through the end of September. Last year at this point, we were at 97.5% of budget, so we're running better than we were last year, 3% or so better. On expenditures, we're at 76.5% of budget. Last year we were at 74%. Right on the nose would be 75%, so we are real close to where we should be at this point. Would like to point out that as of Thursday, when I ran current reports, local revenue is actually $727,000 over what we had budgeted for the entire year at this point. I'm anticipating that we have probably another $600,000 to $800,000 in revenue to come in for August and September, so we should end the year very good position as far as Our revenues, I do not anticipate the expenditures to be out of line. I don't see anything on the horizon right now that would cause us problems. And the board bank accounts have all been reconciled as of June 30th. Questions?
All right, I recommend that the board approve the financial statement for June 2017. Board bank accounts have been reconciled through June 2017.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the financial statements for June 2017. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Consent items.
Consent items, I recommend that the board approve the following consent items: out-of-state and/or overnight trips, student transfers for the 2017-18 school year, and disposal of property, please.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the following consent items: out-of-state and overnight trips, student transfers, and disposals of property as submitted. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Under new business, item 8A, I recommend that the board declare the broken 4-inch sewer pipe beneath the kitchen floor at Vestavia Hills High School to be an emergency situation, and to accept the proposal by Plum Core Incorporated to perform the work necessary to reline said pipe for and in consideration of $24,260, and authorize and direct me as superintendent to sign a contract with Plum Core Incorporated to perform the work.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board declare the described sewer pipe to be an emergency situation and to accept the proposal from Plum Core Incorporated to repair said pipe, and authorize the superintendent to sign a contract to that effect. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. You had me at sewer pipe.
Should not be any doubt of this.
Steve, can't you fix this?
Second. Tyler said it's no big deal. I don't know.
Does that end the discussion there? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8B, I recommend that the board approve the contract between Arrington Engineer and Land Surveying Incorporated in the amount of $25,000 for topographical and ALTA surveying services of the Berry School campus as submitted.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the contract between Arrington Engineering and Land Surveying Incorporated in the amount of $25,000 for topographic and ALTA surveying services as submitted. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8C, I recommend that the board approve the low bid from Transportation South for one or more 2018 Type D rear engine 84 passenger buses in the amount of $118,991, each as submitted, please.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the low bid from Transportation South for one or more buses in the amount of $118,991 each as submitted. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
What's one or more?
Means that we are considering two. We had talked about this at a previous
So
board
one or
meeting,
more.
so one or more depending upon the needs, and those are
So is that-
determined as a need, as whatever that need.
Replacement of existing buses or additions? to current
Where's
fleet?
Tim?
Sorry.
Is it for the replacement of or to add to because of the age of our existing bus line?
Add to, we have 3 buses right now that are not fleet renewal. We do not receive fleet renewal on them. So this will give us an opportunity to add to our routes, which we're going to have to do anyway in the future, and also have the transportation ready to go for that.
Is that locked in at this price?
Yes.
For the, yes,
For the additional, yes.
discount? Quantity discount?
They don't discount on the bids.
And she said rear engine. Are those the flat nosed buses?
Yes.
Okay.
You prefer those?
You know, I think the weight transfer is a little better.
Yeah. Cornering.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all. I recommend that the board approve the Vision School Handbook as submitted, please.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the Vision School Handbook as submitted. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Any discussion?
It's just in concert with the other changes that we're making to make sure it's reflected in our documentation.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8E, I recommend that the board approve the Vestavia Hills High School Senior Pathway Project courses as submitted.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the Vestavia Hills High School Senior Pathway Project courses as submitted. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion?
Only thing I would add is that with the incredible work that's being done in our career technical classes and the development of the work that is being done in these areas for our students, we have students that are prepared to move into this next step of this, and this is something that is required if we're going to offer those courses, and it certainly is it's a tremendous opportunity for our students who are involved in these programs.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8F, I recommend that the board approve the 2017-2018 salary schedules and supplements as submitted.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the 2017-2018 salary schedules and supplements as submitted. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
So Sheila, are these increases just renewing from the prior year? Or what?
Most of them are just renewing from the previous year. You have to do this on an annual basis. There have been some additions to it, some supplements at the high school, I believe.
We clarified a couple of the supplements at the high school. We have to make changes for the contracted principals. And we did go ahead and put a salary schedule out there for an assistant bus mechanic, and the need rises for one. During this year, with the addition of the extra buses, we went ahead and included that salary schedule with this.
As well as the requirements that in the evenings and after school hours and those kinds of things, the volume, weekend work that is required because of the volume of activities that our students are involved in.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8G, I recommend that the board approve the principal employment contract for Tanya Roselle as submitted, please.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the principal employment contract for Tanya Roselle as submitted. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, I would just like to introduce her. This is Tanya Roselle. She is the new principal at Liberty Park Middle School. She's coming to us from Hoover. She was an assistant principal at Simmons for 4 years, is that right? And then she was a previous English teacher at Mountain Brook High School. In my conversations with Brian Kane, who is principal of Simmons, and Kathy Murphy, the superintendent, they were not bitter. They sounded bitter, but they promised me they were not, because they both talked about what a jewel they were losing, but the expertise that we were gaining. She comes incredibly high, very, very highly recommended, and we're looking forward to the work she's going to do at Liberty Park Middle. She, I think, has a really good understanding of all the changes that have taken place and that are going to take place as far as the alignment piece is concerned, and has been involved in that extensively in Hoover in the work that she has done there. And so we just welcome her to our administrative team and look forward to our working with her.
All right.
Welcome. But hey, this is the last day you wear a Hoover color in this room. Okay? Red, white, and blue.
That's one of the things she actually mentioned she was so excited about, was changing her wardrobe.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I recommend that the board approve, excuse me one second. I recommend that the board approve the revised job description for the alternative school teacher as submitted.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the revised job description for alternative school teacher as submitted. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
The only thing that I would add is the reason for this change is with a change in administration and oversight at Vision School, the expansion of the program, we needed to make some changes as far as the supervisor at the alternative school over the teaching staff that is there. That's the reason we changed that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Same thing here. Item 8I, I recommend that the board approve the revised job description for alternative school paraprofessional as submitted.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the revised job description for alternative school paraprofessionals as submitted. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Right. Item 9, personnel. I'm going to split out into 2 parts. I will do one and then I'll give it to Nancy for the rest of it. I recommend that the board approve the following personnel actions: resignations, reassignments, and employments, please.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the following personnel actions: resignations, reassignments, and employments. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just so you all are aware, we are still employing teachers. We had a last-minute resignation last week. That is where Mark Richardson is right now. He's interviewing for a position. A teacher had an opportunity to go serve in another school system at a different level for curriculum and instruction, and we're very proud for her. But as we watch the enrollment numbers at our schools, we just got busy with a kindergarten teacher at Cahaba Heights last week, right? Yes, kindergarten. And so we will continue to watch this until it is not uncommon for the week of school to begin that we are still filling our classrooms because our numbers just continue to grow, especially in those early grades.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, as Sheila said, I will handle the personnel category of retirements this morning. And it's with deepest regrets that I do so. I'd like to read a letter for the record. This letter is dated July 20th, 2017. It's addressed to me as board president and to the other board members. This letter is to serve as notice of my retirement from Vestavia Hills City Schools as superintendent effective September 1st, 2017. Thank you for the opportunity given to me to serve this school system and community for the past 6 years, and most notably as superintendent. It has been a privilege that I have not taken for granted for 1 minute. To serve alongside you in this capacity has truly been one of the highlights of my career, and I consider the current and past board members with whom I have had the honor of serving the dearest of friends. As you all make decisions to fill the vacancy I am leaving, please know that I am happy to assist you and the employees of the school system in any way that I can to ensure a smooth transition. With the greatest of respect, Sheila Phillips. As I said, this is regrettable, and while we weren't successful in talking her out of this, we're supportive and respectful of this decision, even if we don't like it. So now I have 2 motions to present that will allow us to move forward. The first motion. Alabama law requires the City Board of Education to approve employment matters. It's a customary practice, policy, and procedure for this board to act on employment matters at our regularly scheduled and special board meetings. Therefore, I'll entertain a motion to accept the retirement of Dr. Sheila Phillips effective September 1, 2017. Do I hear a motion?
Make the motion.
If we just sit here for a long
No.
It's still going to happen.
Make the motion.
Until September 1st. I don't know if Fox 6 can wait that long. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. The second motion. On June 18, 2014, this board and Dr. Phillips entered into an employment contract. That contract was amended on December 17, 2015. I have asked Mr. Boone to prepare an agreement for cancellation and termination of that employment contract effective September 1, 2017. The contract provides for 2 things. 1, that the employment contract and addendum are canceled, terminated, null, and void effective September 1, 2017. And secondly, that neither party shall be legally obligated to the other after August 31st, 2017. So now entertain a motion authorizing me as president to execute and deliver that agreement for cancellation and termination of the employment contract. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right.
Naturally, you all know I would like to say something. Thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to truly serve this community. You know, I always have a story, and I will tell it. Not today, but I will tell a story. I had a very dear friend yesterday say to me, with much passion comes much emotion. This administrative staff, our teachers, our students, who are so incredible, are what I will miss. To truly get back to being the hands and feet and to serve children directly is where my passion is. And so I am very excited about that and appreciate very much your understanding of this move for me. I'm going to let some silence do the heavy lifting, as we call it, on the other issues that are no secret for us as far as relationships are concerned. And you all have heard me say many times, such a time as this, and the work that has gone on in this school district and in this community. And I think as I reflect back on what Nat said when he was no longer president of the board, he said how proud he was of the work that had been accomplished over the years. And it was easy to lay his head on the pillow at night. I know that as a team we've made things better for the students of this community, and we have cherished the privilege of serving alongside one another. You've heard me talk about flying on the coattails of the work that's being done, such as our AP students and our students who can stand up before a group of adults and speak so eloquently, even when you needed to breathe. And I'm breathing. It truly has been a highlight. So again, I will share the rest of the story. But I believe that when you ask to be the follower rather than the leader, God delivers, and He has put me in a position to do just that. And again, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to serve this community over the past 6 years.
Thank you, Sheila. We appreciate all you've done, and we'll have more to say about that at a later time. Now I want to talk just a minute about the process going forward. We'll begin immediately to find and appoint an interim superintendent, and then we'll develop a timeline and a process to have a search for a permanent superintendent. We expect this process to be similar to the one we used in 2014, but we did learn a few things in that search, so there may be some modifications to that. But we will keep all our stakeholders informed and the community, again, included in the process. So our goal will be to have a new superintendent in place by the end of the calendar year. So, do you have an update for us, or is that good? Okay.
That's very good.
All right, our last order of business this morning will be to invite public comment. We ask that you please limit your comments to agenda items, that you come to the podium and state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes if possible. So, do we have any? Probably the last one. Yes, sir.
Time to come up.
Good morning. First, I'd like to apologize for speaking out of term earlier, and I wish you the very best and thank you for all of your service. My name is Julie Reed, and I live at 4202 Paxton Place in Vestavia Hills. My question was in regard to the last thing that you discussed with Mr. Bendall in regards to the bid and items that are being printed and made in regards to t-shirts for the school systems that do not contain logos. I own a screen printing business. I'm a Vestavia resident, carry a Vestavia business license, and I do a lot of screen printing for the middle school, Liberty Park Middle School, Liberty Park Elementary, that don't contain the logo. Things like, you know, Lancer Fair or Penny Wars or field trip t-shirts and things like that. So my question, which may not be able to be discussed since the bid isn't closed, but will I still have an opportunity at some of that to carry on the relationships that I have with those people and to further my business?
Yes. The answer to that is yes.
Okay.
The trademarking, merchandising, and licensing piece focuses primarily on the trademark logos, the ones that we have already trademarked years ago that we have current trademarking rights to, and then the same thing with those that we are in the process of.
Okay.
So it really focuses on those things. What my conversation with him as well, or my response to it, was part of the agreement is that there will be some places and parts and relationships with vendors that we value and are not willing to change. And there will be a piece and agreement in there and some leverage on our part to ensure that those are protected as we deem and can agree that we want to maintain and move forward with. So yes, the answer to that is yes.
Okay.
Because we certainly value that. I said that last week. We value what we all have in this together and recognize what this can mean for all of us in the community, which is important.
I was just trying to wrap my head around all that it might encompass.
You should see me trying to wrap mine around.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, excuse me.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
My name's Carol Leggett, and I live at 2700 Woodline Circle. I am a merchant in Vestavia. I own Kids Closet and More in the Vestavia City Center, which as of last July incorporated what we call the Vestavia store. I have been licensed with the school board since the inception of having a trademarking license. What did we say that was, 5 years ago, or I don't even remember.
10.
Yeah.
Right? It's been over 10, right?
So, however long they have approached me, I have, it's been an annual. They've asked for my records as to how much I have sold of the Vestavia, the licensed portion of Vestavia merchandise. I've always given them that information. I worked with the school board. Sheila and I emailed many times during the branding process so that I could adhere to what the branding, the new brands were, even though they weren't officially licensed. I met with NIDEDI last year toward the end of the branding process to understand exactly what I could do with the brand, how I could use the brand within a creative design. So I have always, I've always tried to adhere to this merchandise. I supply the community with Vestavia merchandise. The inception of the Vestavia store was due to the customers asking, could you supply more than 2 Vestavia shirts, is what I would typically could have room for. So we realigned our entire business so that we could do that. I offer good quality merchandise. I offer it at what I feel is a fair price. I get good pricing from my vendors and continue to search out for good pricing. I work with many school organizations to supply them. Of course, some of them come because my kids are part of them, and I get voted to do that. So I've worked with the community as well as on the school side of this. I have several concerns with what has been presented to what I know of this. I'm not privy to all the conversations that go on after this. What I am privy to is the bid that's out there and a video that was presented at a working board session as a sales presentation of what could happen. That's all I have to go by. I did have a meeting with Greg Maynor last week to ask some questions and voice my concern, but I feel that my concerns need to be voiced to board members as well. My biggest concern is that I feel that the way that the bid was designed, which only on my terms or my views look as to a program that could proceed in something similar to the way the bid was formed, is that having one vendor control the licensing part, whether to help get it licensed, to get licensees, to enforce it, all that side of it, as well as the same vendor controlling an online website. To the extent of that, I can only go by what was presented in a sales presentation. I have been told that it probably would not be like that, but all I can go by is what was on the sales presentation. That the two parts of that I feel are an extreme conflict of interest and could be a big conflict of interest by having the same vendor controlling who's going to get a license, who's adhering to the license and things like that, as well as they also are going to be
overseeing an online website, which is going to be, of course, for a profit. I feel that's a big conflict of interest. I am not saying that I don't think we need a company to control our licensing and to enforce it. I am saying that same vendor does not need to control an online website, because the things that could go wrong are endless with that. My other concern is, as a licensed business, that I would be licensed to use the trademark. For me to have to go and every creative design that I come up with to have to give to them for permission, is it within the license? Where the problem comes is that same company being able to sell something. I wrote this a whole lot better than I just said that. So that if a new creative design had to be okayed to proceed, and that the same company is in the marketplace to profit from selling merchandise, it may be legal, but I don't think it's right that that person that's going to tell me, and I am okay with me having to take a design and ask somebody that's there to enforce the license, is this okay? Do you approve of this? Where I don't think it's right is that same company is controlling an online website, to what extent that could be. So what I'd like to ask is that the administration, whoever is going to proceed with this contract with this vendor, first, I feel like it may need to be, it really needs to be tabled to review it further, and to in what's the best way for not only myself as a merchant in the community, but for a community school. We're not in Auburn, we're not in Alabama, so just because they do it this way, I don't think it's right that we do it this way. So I just ask that you look more into this and table it for now. Obviously, we have many other things on the table to worry about, so that it can be done correctly and done right. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Sir.
My name is Dan Moran, M-O-R-A-N. I live at 1200 Buckhead Circle. I'm a local merchant. I'm an employer of high school co-op students. I own Rocky Ridge Hardware here in town. I do not have a problem with trademarking, merchandising, and licensing. However, I have a problem with the way this bid was rolled out. I've been emailing and talking to WIT since before March of this year, asking for clarification as to how we need to do what we need to do to sell the new logos. I want to put them on Yeti cups. I see Dr. Burgess's One Rebel license tag on the front of his Jeep. Hey, that would look good on a bottle. That would look outstanding. Rolling out this bid and not knowing about it on June 30th with the deadline of today, the timeline in this document specifies contract execution within 2 to 4 weeks from 8 p.m. today, close of business today. By August 13th, if this thing isn't tabled, you can have somebody telling you what you're going to be doing. This website and this document, nobody's mentioned it. It takes up half the document. You know, we're talking about the little things, we're talking about the details. When I talk to web developers here in town, they don't know about this opportunity. So we've been asking for information, doesn't get put out. I stumbled across the bid when I went to go enroll my student last week. Get a non-functional link, go over to the Board of Ed webpage. Here's a 44-page invitation to bid, out of nowhere. As a business owner and a concerned citizen, my last 2 weeks have been a distraction because I have not been able to focus on my business because I've been trying to keep up with what y'all are doing. Right now, my city councilman is advising me on my next expansion here in town. Do you think I'm going to sign a contract with Barber for the next 25 years, commit 17 hours a day, when the businesses aren't included in what's going on? So having said that, I ask you to table any decisions. It's my understanding there's a problem with the way this thing was disclosed. I've been told state bidding law, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Boone, but all 3 recipients of this bid should be disclosed, and we only know of one, the big dog in town. So with kids in the system, younger ones coming into the system, I've got decisions to make as a businessman. Do I just work my one business until my last kid gets out of school? Or do I decide to work with the city, do a multi-million-dollar investment, and try to make this my home? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware that Liberty Park Middle School hired a French teacher and a German teacher for the upcoming school year, and we are very excited about that. There have been a lot of assurances made about alignment of curriculum, and you know that I'm very concerned because I live in Liberty Park, and as does Jerry. But I just wanted to thank the board for making good on those assurances. That it was a good faith effort to fill those positions. I understand we have excellent teachers coming. And as we go forward, especially with the change of administration, I just hope that this board will continue to make that a priority as we go forward, and especially as we add 9th grade to our middle school. So thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Anyone else? There being no further business to come before this board, we stand adjourned.